Hello everyone, my name is Loco and welcome to another best of 3 series of professional StarCraft 2. Now what I got for you today is a Zerg versus Protoss between two players that I personally am a massive fan of. Spawning here in the bottom right hand corner of Acid Plant LE in game number 1 of this series. And playing with the blue Zerg drones. He's from France and he goes by the nickname of Stephano. And his opponent, spawning in the top left-hand corner of the map, he's playing with the red Protoss probes. He's from South Korea, easily one of the strongest Protoss players on the planet. Of course, we are currently looking in the main base of Zest. So here's the thing. This was recently played over in Krefeld, Germany, as part of Home Story Cup. Now, at Home Story Cup, they basically have several stages of the tournament. Usually, as with most tournaments, they will end with a bracket stage. However, in the earlier parts of the tournament, they will favor group play instead. And what that means is that a lot of players will basically play a round robin. They will face off against each other once, and then, say like in an 8-player group or whatever, the top 4 will move on. Now, I know that both Zest as well as Stephano did really well at Home Story Cup. However, I don't actually know who ends up winning this series. This was played really early on during the tournament group stage, and I think we should be in for a treat, because while I know that both of them moved on, I don't actually know who ended up winning this series. Now, as you may be aware, both of these players are very, very well known. Stephano, a couple of years ago in particular, easily considered to be the most successful non-Korean player in StarCraft 2. Now, since then, I think he's been overtaken by, for example, Snipe, who obviously smashed the competition for a couple of years already. But Stephano, in particular, a couple of years ago, was absolutely dominating the scene. Now, interestingly enough, he sort of like announced his retirement, but I don't think he actually ever really retired. He always was one of those players who really liked to keep the pressure low, right? And I know that leading up to this tournament, at the very least, he did a ton of live streaming over at Twitch. I saw him streaming all the time, so I know he still plays a lot. I know he apparently is going to school full-time as well, but he still plays this game professionally. Even though he's technically retired, it's kind of an interesting thing. He travels to a lot of tournaments. Anyway, Zest, I mean, he's, if I'm not mistaken, the defending champion of Home Story Cup at this point. Obviously, this is before the grand finals. Now, spoiler alert, for this event, actually, Innovation was the one who obtained the victory. But Zest, I believe he had a back-to-back victory at Home Story Cup prior to Home Story Cup 17, the one that just recently wrapped up. But the man also won several GSLs in his day. He's an absolute monster. Just recently, he even ended up getting second place at the GSL Codes finals against Maru, who seems to be absolutely unstoppable. But basically what I'm saying is that Zest is a very, very successful player in his own right. Very normal builds here from both players. Zest, though, decides to not open up with the Stargate, interestingly enough. Stargate play is definitely the gold standard, but it does look like he may very well be going for maybe something a little bit more aggressive. Now, one of the Overlords making its way all the way to the top left-hand corner. Bit of an awkward spot, but apparently Stephano knows that it will be able to just barely survive there. We do see a robotic facility coming up, as well as the charge upgrade, but no forge just yet. So this is a little bit awkward. I think that Zest actually just plans on doing a little bit of pressure and then maybe transition off of this towards the third base. He also has the option to go for an all-out assault, but there we go. We do see the Dark Shrine now coming up. So it is going to be that Warp Prism play with probably some Archons and then also some Zealots as a follow-up. This is a great way of sort of forcing the Zerg player to stay at home. In particular, if you have a Warp Prism out, right, it's very difficult for Zerg to actually move across the map. In the earlier stages of the match, when Zerg doesn't have a lot of drones out just yet, they really want to try and prioritize that. So as long as the Warp Prism is out and there's a couple of Archons in it, it's very difficult for a Zerg player to make that decision to move across. So I wouldn't be surprised if Zest uses this opportunity in just a bit to go up towards the third. Now keep in mind, this is a rather potential push. Obviously Stephano doesn't know how many gateways are up. He needs to be careful that he doesn't overdo the amount of droning that he does. I mean, for all we know, or for all he know, rather, or for all he knows at this point, rather, there could be 8 gateways, right? Now, in total, there's only 4, which is the most common variant of this build, but I've seen players definitely go up to, like, you know, 8 gateways in these scenarios and just simply go for a 2-base all-in. And it looks like Stephano may very well be assuming that's the case. He is scouting the third base right now of the Protoss. There's none to be seen anywhere just yet. He will be able to go after these couple of Zealots here for the time being. Obviously, the Warp Prism can pick them up. Look at that beautiful pickup micro. Zest showing us why he is so very good. The Roach is now coming up as well. Obviously, Stephano doesn't want to lose the third base at this point in the game, but it's a little bit tricky against charge slots already. Nice little bit of micro though from both players, really trying to keep as many of those units alive. But now that Stephano knows it is not going to be 8 gateways here in total, he should be in a decent spot. Dark Templar now morphing in the main base as well. Warp Prism over there too, being an absolute nuisance. There is an Overseer now morphing in with the lair finished up already, but the double Warp Prism play is something that we see every once in a while, but it's not nearly as common as you would expect, considering Warp Prisms are absolutely phenomenal. Now the spawning pool put in a very awkward position to grant a little bit of vision, I guess, of the top right-hand corner of the main. It will be picked off, and while the Dark Templar are once again in the safety of the Warp Prism, the spawning pool ends up dying, and 6 drones in total there as well, but it's all manageable. One important thing that Stephano does know of at this point is that there's still no third base. That's a big deal. Zest may very well go off of like a relatively small economy, right, for an all-in. Now, we do see the Forge coming up. Apparently, there may have been actually a bit of a lag spike over here. But anyways, apparently there is now a Forge coming up, which would indicate that there's something a little more aggressive coming a little while later. A lot of Archons now, though. That's triple Archon drop. That's so sick, right? Double Warp Prism Archon drops. This is not something you practice against very often at all if you are a Zerg. Now, I can almost guarantee you that Zest is not going to lose these, because he's phenomenal when it comes to this kind of playstyle. But seeing this late of an attack upgrade, though, for Protoss is kind of awkward. I mean, Zerg doesn't have a lot of economy either, but the main reason for that is that Stephano is just scared of making a lot of those workers. He queues up 11 right now, but he knows that his opponent still does not have a third base out. That's extremely late. Finally, we do see now a probe moving over towards the third base location. But to put this in perspective, right, usually we see a third base for Protoss go up right around the 4.5 to 5.5 or so minute mark, depending on what strategy Protoss is playing. And usually, in the vast majority of the cases, if it's going to be, say, for example, a Stargate into an Archon drop, we would see that base go up at 5 minutes. This is like a good minute and a half or so later, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I don't really know exactly if Zest did a sufficient amount of damage to justify that late of a third. The Overlord's there in the dead space, spotting exactly where this army is going to be coming from. Stephano is going to try and take the fourth over here. I don't think that one is going to live for very long. At the very least, as long as Zest realizes what's going on. Zest with the spider senses right there will be able to check that. But the Roaches does barely manage to split off and save the fourth here for the time being. Nice little game number 1, though. Already some tricksy play here. Both players testing the waters. Stephano trying to figure out how many workers he can get away with. This is very awkward, though, right? Because how exactly do you know at this point when you need to stop droning? Now, Hydro Disc are coming up. They're going to be great against this Immortal-based force, but there's still double Warp Prism out, right? And obviously, only one Warp Prism is needed. The other one can continue juggling on the other side of the map. And while the Warp Prisms are now pulling away a lot of this Roach-based force, there's that big-ass Protoss army moving right here on the right-hand side of the map as well. Mass Recall is available here for Zest, so he should be in a decent spot, but still, nice defense so far. Looks like Stephano is actually just going to jump on his opportunity, trying to snipe all of those sentries, prioritizing those units, but the Immortals don't mess around. They're going to be able to deal a lot of damage. Now the Warp Prisms are moving over towards this side of the map as well. The Hydras just barely do not get the pick off on it. And with these Archons reinforcing this army, right? I really like this play, though, from Zest. What a cool strategy. Going for the really quick double Warp Prism, making it so difficult for Zerg to read how many workers he can get away with. And now with that fourth base killed, I think that Zest is going to be in a pretty good spot, right? I mean, now it's 3 base versus 3 base. That's exactly where you want to be as a Protoss player. With only 3 base economy, Zerg has a very hard time transitioning to, for example, Lurkers, and Protoss can continue building up, maybe even up to Storm, right? If you see Archon Immortal with Storm support, there is a lot of potential there. Obviously, at this point, maybe Zest isn't even looking for it. He might just want to continue the aggression like this for a little while longer. One Archon moving forward, trying to lead the charge there, but I mean, there's still that second Warp Prism out continuously, right? I really like this style. So cool. He got the War Prism out really early, and sure, he didn't have the defenses of, for example, that you know, Oracle in the early game. But once again, Zerg is forced to split up that army. Fourth will be cancelled here, and at the same time, the third base also falls. Zest showing us how strong of a player he is. He does not mess around. Going for an unorthodox build, one that may technically be inferior to the gold standard, but it does very much so tax Stephano here in the earlier part of the game. Alright, so let's talk about the Zerg's options. I mean, right now, it's 3 base versus 2. Zest has been picking apart at this Zerg defense for a very long time already. I honestly think that Zerg's best option at this point is to maybe go for, you know, just a massive all-in. Right? Supply-wise, he's still in a good spot. Like, look, the army supply count is still very, very solid. Zest still does not really have any splash. He's finally now going for the Templar Archives, but it's later than you would normally expect it. And with a little bit of miss micro, there's still a chance that Zest might be able to lose. I mean, Stephano's army is magnificent, and he didn't really lose that many workers. Right? It's just that he can't really mine very efficiently anymore either. Looks like Stephano, though, rather than going for the big push, decides to go for the double expand, realizing that his opponent likely doesn't have a massive economy either, but it seems a little bit risky, though. A couple of Hydras now once again splitting themselves off. And that's the thing, though. These double War Prisms, they are really forcing the Zerg to just simply stay at home for so very long. I mean, they are continuously moving, one with the main army and then one over here on the, I guess, the left-hand side, bottom side of the map. Still, this is a good high ground, though, for Zerg to sit in, right? That's a very nice spot. Cheeky play. There's one Dark Templar in here already as well. A couple of Zealots now, though, making their way towards that 4th base location. And I really feel like Stephano is being outplayed here in this first game of the series. Zest really not messing around. He dropped off the Dark Templar once again. He knows that there's not a lot of detection here for Zerg. And while this Dark Templar will be picked up once again into the safety of the War Prism, you can bet your ass it will be back here in just a little bit. Storm is now just about to finish as well. Zest is building up that really scary force. Now that he's got a bunch of High Templar, he has defense here against Baneling run-bys. He is in a really good spot. I think that Zest just simply wants to go for that really big maxed out army as well and then move across. Right? He's forcing the Zerg almost into an all-in. Now, I'm quite surprised Stephano is allowing it to get to this point. If there's one thing that Stephano is, it's well, that's not gonna happen. You can't warp in over there, right? Can you? Oh my god, imagine you can. I've never seen players do that. No, there's no way. Anyway, if there's one thing that Stephano is, it's a very patient man. He's extremely good at just simply sitting back, trying to play his own game, and then eventually moving when he is comfortable. He's very good at doing this, but so far, Zest is just simply forcing his opponent back all the time. 4th base once again gets cancelled. And I really feel like that's the theme of this game so far. Sure, that's a lot of Zealots there lost as well, but here we go, though. Zest is now moving forward the main army. The War Prism's still in the back. It's trying to see if it can deal some damage, but Stephano, he doesn't even want to face off against that force. As in game number 1, it's Zest who obtains the victory. Phenomenal game there by Zest. Absolutely spot on. He did not really miss the beat as far as like the tempo of the game goes, right? Just continuously harassing his opponent. And the thing is, with one War Prism out, right? It's difficult to move out if you are a Zerg player. But if you know there's 2 of them, I mean, you can kind of try and chase down, for example, one of the War Prisms. But if there's 2, it becomes so very difficult because you never really know exactly where they're going to come from. Basically, you're just forced to sit back. And while Stephano did try to do exactly that, right? He was trying to sit on 4 bases there. Zest splitting off his army brilliantly. I love that Immortal move out across the map as well. Not something that Stephano expected. I mean, at that point in the game, when Zest moved out with a couple of Immortals to the 4th base location, I think Zest purposefully put both of his War Prisms on the left-hand side of the map to try and show the Zerg that, hey, wait a second, you don't need to split up your army. And then, you know, normally what is a risky move with the Immortal move out, right? Like, all of a sudden, it paid off in dividends. So cool. Really like that style. Anyways, let's see if Stephano is faced at all here in game number 2 of the series. I would be very surprised. Obviously, he's a very, you know, high-level player. He's very much so a veteran of the game. And usually players are flustered if they are relatively new to the pro scene, when they're like playing on a big stage and they know a lot of people are watching. You know, if you lose game number 1 in a spectacular fashion there, you might be flustered, but I don't think Stephano really cares all too much. He's very much so a veteran of the game, and I think he's going to be more than comfortable playing this one out at his own pace. Actually, many pro gamers reported that. Like, sometimes, apparently, this is very common in tournaments. You practice for months leading up to a tournament at home, and then once you're actually at the event, you're like, okay, let's go for a 13-12 as Zerg, and we just go for a Zerg and cheese. Even though that's something you didn't actually practice, apparently ignoring your gut instinct is a very important part of playing these kind of tournaments, because you may very well be tempted to, you know, overvalue the strength of your opponent and, you know, just sort of go for strategies that you're not even truly comfortable with. Apparently, this is a very, very common thing that pro gamers have to learn to ignore when they first get into professional SC2. Anyways, this time around, we do see a bit of a different build here from Zest. He is going to go for the Stargate opener. Definitely the gold standard. On this map, you obviously have that in-base expansion, and then a relatively easy-to-take third here as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Zest is going to try and take that third really, really quickly. More or less as like a contrast to that previous match. Zerg, though, obviously, can also go ahead and take a really greedy third base. Stephano going for the forward expansion first. That's mostly due to the fact that creep just spreads a little bit nicer from this area of the map, rather than from over here, obviously. So usually Zergs will try and take the base near the front just to get that creep spread underway a little bit more aggressively. Now, there are already 2 queens out, a couple of Zerglings waiting here on top of the ramp. Third queen will be joining in just a little bit, but with the next group of Zerglings spawning, I don't think there's anything weird here whatsoever. Now, the Adept is just scouting out how necessary it is right now for the Protoss player to go for an Oracle. Apparently, Zest still decides to go for the Oracle as fast as he possibly can. He may have seen something or a lack thereof out of Stephano to just simply go for the Oracle immediately. The Oracle is great offensively, but obviously very critical defensively as well. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if Zest takes a third base here in just a bit. He doesn't necessarily need to go for anything super, you know, super defensive right now, I don't think. He could go for, once again, the Archon drops as a follow-up here too, which I wouldn't mind, but I do think his best course of action is just to go for a really greedy and quick third base. Instead, though, oh, look at that. Zest goes for the second Stargate. My god, look at that. He's playing something really unorthodox here in both of the games. Very cool. So I think this is going to be a Mass Phoenix then, right? Mass Phoenix has become a little more popular lately. Now, obviously, the way that this map functions with this really big dead area here in the center, it does allow you to pick up a lot of units for relatively free. But, I mean, Stephano is great defensively, right? He's really good in these kind of scenarios. I feel like that's also one of the builds that was very popular when Stephano was still at the top of his game a couple of years ago. I feel like the Mass Phoenix style is something that we saw a lot back then, but... well, here we go. We do see eventually that third base coming up, though. So that's still 4.5 minutes into the game. Relatively early, a little bit quicker than you would expect. So I would like to see Stephano now moving across here with a Zergling just to try and see the timing of that third. But shortly, you'll likely be able to figure it out. Now, here we go. There's a nice little hit squad here. What this Phoenix can do is obviously lift up the Queen. Stephano already fully aware of that, though. Pulls the drones immediately. But what the Phoenix could do is lift up the Queen, and then the Oracle can swoop in and basically kill a couple of drones while the Spore is busy hitting away at, of course, the Phoenix first. And Phoenixes are quite tanky. So usually you can secure yourself like 3-4 kills like that. Nice little hit squad here, but look at that, right? Zest now going for a lot of Phoenixes already, and he's hiding them. This is not a third Stargate. 3 Stargate Mass Phoenix is pretty common. It's only going to be 2 Stargates, so I don't know exactly if Zest wants to play super aggressively here. Stephano still has absolutely no clue what's happening here, right? Zest purposefully not showing any of this, and now he's moving across. There we go, like an arrow shot from a bow there. He moves forward. Now at this point, Stephano knows what's up. He's immediately put down the Hydro Den. He needs to get some more defenses out, though. He is going to have to get more spores. There we go. Spore crawlers are now being queued up, but this is very risky. A lot of Zerglings here on the other side of the map. Beautiful shade there, by the way, and obviously that Oracle is going to help out quite a bit as well. Shield battery in a nice spot, but I don't know if it's enough. I do feel like Zerg has a lot of units, and if there's one thing that Phoenixes are not good against, it's going to be Zerglings. It takes a very long time for them to kill it. There's no Spore here in the main whatsoever, so Stephano definitely does look like he's going to end up losing quite a few drones, but at the same time, it looks like Zest is occupied on the other side of the map, trying to save his third base. Judging by the way that this all looks, though, I don't think he's going to get that one up and running. More and more Zerglings are streaming across, and the third does fall. In the meantime, though, a lot of the Phoenix is still going to town, trying to pick up whatever they can. I'm quite surprised that Zest does not decide to go after the mineral line as aggressively. I think he was trying to micro several different battles at once. That's still 7 drones, though, in just a couple of seconds, and that's one of the things that Phoenixes are very good at. Look at that. Oof. 10 drones there in total. Did he lose any of the Phoenixes? None went down so far. But, oh my god, no way. Oh, this happens to everyone in their Protoss career. The one Zealot, it was on hold position, but it was just 1 pixel to the left, and all of a sudden, the Zerglings are streaming into the main base. Stephano made a lot of links there. I thought he maybe overdid it for just a bit. Well, it's 7-9 probes right now. I don't think this is going to slow down. Eventually, obviously, these Voids will be able to pick it up. They've got 13 kills, 14 kills here, and 15. Like, they've got dozens of kills here already combined, but that's still 13 probes. And the Zergling threat is not dealt with just yet. There's no third command center here, or rather, no third nexus here either for our Protoss. He's got a nice little Phoenix cloud, but Stephano sitting nice and pretty on the 3-base economy. So let's see what Stephano's plan is going to be, right? He killed 14 probes, which is nice. He knows that Protoss is now sitting on only a handful of workers, which is nice as well. He knows that Protoss is only at a maximum of you know, 2 Nexi at this point, which is also nice. But he hasn't closed out the game yet. Zest, I mean, he's a GSL victor, right? He knows how to play these kind of scenarios. He's good at playing the game from behind. He's got units that are very, very microable. What I mean with that is that Phoenixes are very good when you continuously control them. And it's these little bits and pieces that he can definitely use to pick up a couple of kills once again and to just crawl his way back into the game. Look at that. Interesting part about Hydras is that while Hydras obviously shoot up and technically Phoenixes don't shoot down, Phoenixes deal bonus damage against light and Hydras are light. So in small numbers, Phoenixes actually are not, you know, are not weak against Hydralisk, but it's a slippery slope, obviously, when the Hydra count gets out of control. Here we go, though. That's a lot of Void Rays. Stephano now putting one of those spores here in that dead area, which I really, really like. He's trying to sort of secure the bases, but at the very least, what Zest is once again doing is buying himself a lot of time. He once again decided to go for the third Nexus on the low ground. Stephano is not committing to any heavy amount of Zerglings or whatever just once again. And the one thing to keep in mind as well is that while Stephano has 60 workers, it's not like he's in a phenomenal spot here, economically speaking, compared to his opponent. Right? It's not like he's already done making drones here to play like a 50-minute long game. Ugh! A lot of these Phoenixes are not taking a lot of damage. Lucky AI there, though, by Zest. He does keep 2 of them alive. Could have gone the exact other direction as well. Stephano now going for the ranged upgrade right here for the Hydras as well as the missile upgrade. We do see a, I was gonna say, a second Baneling Nest. That doesn't make any sense. No, we do see that Hydraling Bane style now developing. Very, very potent, of course, but once again, Zest is buying himself a lot of time. Fourth base just finished up here for Zerg as well. Hydra's trying to see if they can go for a bit of a move out, but I don't think it's gonna really happen here. They will be forced at home with these Phoenixes still roaming the map, and I think the Phoenixes, once again, look at that. It's a couple of drones every once in a while, but look at that in total, right? That's 25 workers killed, actually. Zest killed more workers than his opponent. Which is kind of crazy when you think about the fact that the entire main and natural are overrun with just Zerglings. And there we go, once again. They're really quite tanky with those shields regenerating. Well, it looks like Stephano has had enough. He wants to go for an all-out assault. There are a couple of these stasis wards near the front, and it does look like Stephano is trying to see if he can find some of them. Morphing in the Banelings right now as well, which I really like. Banelings are great against everything on the ground. If they can connect with a couple of the sentries or the zealots, they are definitely moved out of the equation. There's still a bunch of shield batteries here too, and obviously, well, I mean, there's no denying though that this Zerg army is very menacing, right? But there are still a couple of these stasis wards that can definitely turn the tide of battle. More and more defense is now coming up for Zest. He's waiting. He's waiting. There are... Oh, well, that's the first one triggered. Beautiful force fields there. Not too many, not too few. Zest buying himself time. That seems to be the key answer here. Now, he is going for the Glaives upgrade for the Adept. That one's not going to finish just yet. We do see a couple of the Adepts being warped in right now. Double Immortals already coming up as well. Once again, though, these force fields need to be on point. Very, very nicely done once again, but that did cost him a couple of those sentries. And at this point, I feel like the time that Zest could have bought, and that he did buy so far, is mostly running out. Right? There are still a lot of force fields. There's still a lot of shield batteries. Once again, great last-second force fields. Force field really buying a lot of time. Once again, though, he's pushing this Zerg back. You really have to be careful. If you just spam force fields, Zerg is gonna advance. Right? You don't want to use it too early. Baeling's actually being target fired down there for a little bit by the Void Ray, but here we go. Zerg is going to commit to this engagement once again. Phoenix is picking up as many Hydras as they can. A lot of the boys are now pulled off the line as well. Immortals from a distance trying to kill as much as they can. Shield batteries, though, now out of energy, so they're no longer going to be able to really help out with this Zerg onslaught. More and more Zerglings are moving across the map, and I really like this decision here by Stephano, going for like an all-out Zergling assault. Now, keep in mind, the Glaive's upgrade did just finish up, so that means that all of these units are going to be phenomenal. Oh, look at that. Zest actually holds on there. All of these units that Zest is making, right? In particular, those Adepts, they're phenomenal against light units. Now, I wonder if Zest may be a little bit overextending, though, right? A lot of these Immortals, once again, looking to get surrounded. They're still picking up so many kills, though. Oh, man. The micro here by Zest is so sick. Now, that was definitely a committed push here by Stephano, but he didn't win. He didn't win, and this is once again where the game can become frustrating. I would say that your regular run-of-the-mill pro gamer would have lost in this scenario. That defense right there by Zest was solid. He did end up losing, I think, all of the Phoenixes. Yeah, he lost all of them. But he secured himself the third base. And he knows that he's still got more time to play this one out. Already, though, oh, I love this. Stephano, I mean, he went for a big Hydraling Bane push. But he's transitioning right now towards a greater Spire already. And if you look right here at the amount of units that shoot up, I mean, there's a couple of sentries. They can kind of tickle away at, you know, some of those Zerg units. But I still really like this decision for Stephano to transition this quickly into a relatively high-tech army. A couple of these Adepts, though, trying to pick off whatever they can. The Shade is currently being activated there towards the third base, and it does look like Zerg will be able to clean this one up here. But we are at a bit of a stalemate. At this point, Zest can basically do whatever he likes. He did now bring a War Prism out here, with a couple of Immortals in it. Immortals, of course, very good at killing buildings in particular. Gotta say, this Spore Crawler positioning is just to try and deal with that kind of shenanigans. So I really like this play here from Stephano. Brute Lords are now coming up, though. That's 5 Brutes here in total. I think the Stephano's plan right now is to try and go for that really big Brute Lord-based army. It's still 100% unscouted. Right? Zest does not even know about the Hive. So at this point, he doesn't know that there's even the potential for Brutes. And he's still making Immortals. Like, this is not the scenario that you want to be in. A couple of Phoenixes now coming up as well. They're not going to be the greatest. Still, though, these Immortals can definitely deal some damage. They're going to go after one of the Spores immediately. That could potentially trigger the Warp Prism to warp in a couple of units once again. But there are the Corruptors. Corruptors will be able to kill this one eventually. Apparently, the mass recall will be forced. Seeing the Corruptors out, though, might ring a bell in Zest's head. Right? What exactly are you going to use Corruptors for at this point in the game? Void Rays immediately being queued up. Zest does know what's going on. I wonder if he's going to go for a lot of Stormy Boys or if he plans on making a bunch of Archon. I think both options are great. He does already have a couple of them. There we go. He adds on some more. Oh, really cheeky. He adds on a couple more Archon there. Hallucinated Colossi. To try and slow down this army. I like the idea. Now, Zerg is still scouting to see if there's maybe a hidden base here anywhere. None of that is going on, though, right? He's continuously scouting the left-hand side and the bottom right-hand corner to see if maybe Protoss is trying to take a hidden base. Stephano knows that he's got his opponent up against the wall. But obviously, this is still one of the top-level Protosses we are talking about. And one overextension can easily cost him the game. Yeah, I like this. He's just sitting back. I've personally lost many games in this kind of scenario by moving out across the map before getting up to this maxed out state. Instead, Stephano is just simply going to sit back on his Brute Lord and now also Infestor army. Now, for those of you wondering, hey, where did Stephano earn like his $500,000 in prize money or so? It's pretty much always going to be Brute Lord Infestor. He was phenomenal during a state where Zerg was very, very strong as well. A lot of people say that Zerg was a little OP at that point, and I probably have to agree with you. But he was very, very good at the Immortal, or rather in the Brute Lord Infestor playstyle that Zerg had for a little while. And his micro, coming from Warcraft 3, was just on another level. People could just not quite beat it. Also, the patience that he displays in a lot of these games. I mean, how many of us would have already felt the need right now to just simply, you know, box click and attack move everything across the map, right? I personally would have already felt like that when I first had my 6 Brute Lords out. Instead, Stephano is sitting back. He knows very well that he's in a superior economy here. He's giving his opponent right now the chance to get a 4th base, giving the Protoss a little bit of wiggle room. Neuroparasite is now coming up as well, though. I feel like Stephano has got this one in the bag. As long as he doesn't like miss micro, and as long as he doesn't get smashed in the next engagement, he should be in a good spot. Still, these hallucinated colossi. I mean, right now Zest is trying to keep up appearances, I guess. The first hallucination definitely ran out. He's once again hallucinating in a couple of colossi, just to try and keep up appearances rather. These Zerglings do not have Adrenal Glands. They are a +2 melee. I would have actually really liked him to get the Adrenal, or I would have liked him to get the Adrenal Glands upgrade right now. Couple of the Poke Boys though. Managed to clean up these units, but here we go. This is the Zerg army that Stephano was looking for. Brute Lord Infestor in 2018. Now it's not even remotely similar to what it was once like, way back in the day. But there is no denying that it's still a very potent composition. Queens are in the mix as well. Obviously, a couple of Corruptors, a couple of Hydras are in the mix too. It's gonna be primarily the Brutes here that are meant to deal the damage. Tempests are coming up as well, which I really like for Zest. He needs about 6 or so, but I don't think it's gonna really get to that point. Couple of Infested Terrans here. Interesting. Like the way that he put those things down as well in like these waves. Very curious. Oh my god, he's just sort of putting them down there to make it really hard, I guess, for the Zerg to, or for the Protoss rather, to engage. A couple of links made their way across the map. What a cheeky move there. Stephano with the cheeky Infested Terrans. Right? Slowly, methodically picking off this Protoss 4th base. And the Protoss 4th does die. Still, this buys time, of course, for more and more of these Tempests to come out. Zest will be capable of popping these Brute Lords like flies in just a bit once he gets enough Tempest. He does need an Oracle, though, for vision. Does he have an Oracle still in here? I don't see one. Well, here we go. It does look like we are finally making our way up for that big engagement. Neuroparasite being activated there on the Archon, dealing a lot of splash damage here already. Beautiful fungal growth as well, slowing down a lot of this army, but you can hear the assimilation being successful. So many of these Infestors are getting so much value in as well. Still, that's a lot of Tempest dealing damage here from the back. A lot of Infested Terrans now out as well, though. They deal a phenomenal amount of damage, and while eventually they will run out of life, the majority of the Brutes are still available, and I think that Stephano has done it. He's now reinforcing with more and more anti-air units, getting himself these Hydras out, getting himself the Corruptors, and Zest maybe a multiple times GSL victor, and Stephano may technically be retired, but he's still showing phenomenal play here. And he is the one who obtains victory in game number 2. That was honestly beautiful. I mean, I know I said that about Zest in game number 1, but I have to compliment Stephano's patience there. It's always one of the things that I personally am struggling with whenever I play StarCraft. You know, at some point I'm like, okay, I got an advantage, let's go! Oh, army hotkey, let's go! I feel a little guilty whenever it doesn't work out, but Stephano's showing us, I mean, hey, I you know, got a massive lead. I'm effectively playing 2 base versus 4 base, with 4 bases being in my favor, but, you know, you don't need to put all of your eggs in one basket. As long as you are confident in your macro game, and you know that you can play the late game, and you can build up your dream Zerg composition, it's perfectly viable to just simply sit back. Now, obviously, against someone like Zest, right, that's a scary-ass thing to do. I personally would have been terrified to do that, but Stephano showing us that he's confident, showing us that he's very patient, and showing us that even in game 3, he's still all cool, making that Hatchery as his very first building. Now, one of the really popular builds lately, in particular in Europe and in North America, is this super aggressive, cheesy style with, like, you know, a pylon over here and then a gateway, a cybercore, and then people get shield batteries and photon cannons and eventually immortals with a war prism. It's a super cheeky build. Apparently, Zest is not gonna play that. I would have liked it, though, if he decided to go for something a little bit more cheesy in one of the games of this series. Nevertheless, though, he's already been showing us some odd builds, right? He's already been showing us some interesting builds, so I don't know. I would have liked him to maybe go for a little bit of cheese as well. Anyway, so he went for a interesting double War Prison play in game number 1. Then in game number 2, we saw him go for the double Stargate play with a lot of Phoenixes. In game number 1, it did work out, mostly because Stephano was sort of, you know, pulled apart, right? Slowly but surely, methodically picked apart. In game number 2, even though Zest still did a lot of damage, Stephano was the one who really ended up dealing a lot of the hurt as well when he first ran a big clump of Zerglings across the map. When he realized that it wasn't going to be an Archon-based opener, he just made a lot of links and then killed the 3rd, right? That's kind of where the game steamrolled out of control for Zest. I wonder what Zest has got in store for us in this game. I think in this game, considering this is a really important one for him to win at this stage in the tournament, I think he's going to go for his most standard gameplay. Already we see a Stargate being built there, a bit of an unorthodox position. Stephano is going to scout this one out. At this point, Zerg players also will start counting for pylons. He knows that there's going to be one near the front in the natural, so he knows that there's at the very least going to be one there. But he won't find out very much. Sometimes Protoss players put their buildings behind the mineral line. But at this point, Stephano is a little bit worried, but look at that, right? Showing us, like, these little moves, that's what set people apart compared to, like, your regular Grandmaster level player to pro gamer. Is these little moves where Stephano looks at that, he's like, okay, there's nothing behind the mineral line, and he immediately knows where to send that Overlord. It makes a lot of sense, obviously. It's not like a super high-level move or whatever, but it's these little moves where it doesn't even take a moment of hesitation. Like, there's not even a moment of thinking. You could see that Stephano just immediately knew where to send that Overlord to scout out what's going on. And it's all these little moves that add up very quickly at this level of play when it comes to defeating your opponent. Like, if you wouldn't have seen this, you might have to forcibly go into a bunch of blind spore crawlers, and whereas in this scenario it probably would have been okay, it still makes it so much harder, right? Say, for example, you're going up against a person who's going like for Twilight Council play or whatever, and you don't scout it in time. It's these little moves that really add up very quickly. Oracle follow-up once again for Zest. I wonder if he's gonna go... Yeah, there we go. I wonder if we're gonna see that Robo follow-up from him once again. This is one of the most common build orders in StarCraft 2's multiplayer right now. Would expect a Twilight Council here in just a little bit as well. Have to keep an eye out on that minimap. Speaking of the minimap, this is sort of what Serral loves to do as well, right? With small groups of Zerglings. Putting them up in a bit of a rally, I guess, is Stephano right here, to spot where all of the units are coming from. It's a nice play, right? Remember when Zerg was putting their Overlords in just random-ass positions, and eventually Protoss will start opening up with Phoenixes once again? I mean, this is kind of taking that role of the Overlords. Right? Kind of taking the role of a watchtower. A lot of the newer maps do not have watchtowers. I guess that's what these Zerglings are achieving here. This is the reason why we don't use all army hotkeys, gentlemen. I know a lot of you will primarily use your army, but just using the army hotkey. I'm looking at you right now. You gotta unbind that thing for a little while. You gotta get used to making these little moves. Anyways. We do see the War Prism now coming up. Zest going for a lot of gateways. Templar Archives will finish up in just a bit. That is 6 gateways here in total. Now, obviously, that could be an all-in. If he makes a third Nexus, I do think it's going to be mostly just pressure. There we go, 5-minute third Nexus. This is going to be mostly just pressure, but we do see the charge upgrade as well as, of course, the Templar Archives. So this will be Archon play with Zealot support. 6 gateways is kind of awkward. Usually we see 4 gateways off of 2 bases into a third at 5 minutes. Or we see 8 gateways on 2 bases with a much later third. Right? And right now we see 6 gateways, which is kind of in the middle of the road there. Which obviously opens up the potential here for Zest to be really aggressive, but he also is forced to cut out a couple of probes. So I'm not entirely sure how worthwhile this is going to be. The double layer there. Zest is not going to lose once again to just one Zealot misstepping there. Obviously, that's a big deal as well, by the way, in the previous game. Anyway, Oracle now back at home. It will be able to zap away at these units for a little while, but there we go. Stephano doesn't mess around. He knows that his opponent is on the other side of the map. He's forced to make a lot of Zerglings, and Zerglings are not the greatest when it comes to beating Archon. Even without upgrades, obviously, it's still pretty tricky to make that one worthwhile. A lot of Lings are now also returning back home. I do think that Stephano could have actually done some more damage there, but Zest was forced to warp in at home, and it does look like there are... How many Zealots is that? Yeah, it's 5 Zealots. Stephano going for a really big amount of Zerglings, though. That's 18 more. Very interesting. Well, that definitely does mean that the robotics facility will fall. War Prism now out of energy. Zerglings do not have upgrades, right? Oh, actually, no, they do have... Oh, okay, they do get +1. I actually didn't miss the early Evo Chamber upgrade. I was going to say, that's so interesting. Why is he playing so aggressive? But he does have that +1 melee upgrade. This is one of the things that Raynor loves to do. Obviously, Raynor is looking extremely promising right now, but... this is one of the builds that Raynor loves to do. This is basically a much more aggressive version of what you would normally see in the metagame of StarCraft 2. You go for +1 melee really early, and I kind of missed the Evo Chamber there in the earlier part of the game, but you allow yourself to play heavy Zerglings and then deny that third Nexus. Now, speaking of which, I mean, Stephano definitely meant on getting into the main base of his opponent. He definitely meant on trying to shut this front wall down. He definitely meant on trying to kill the third base as well, but none of that really happened. Right? He did break the front wall, but it wasn't all that much. And while this is all going on, of course, Zest is, you know, he's of another caliber than your regular, you know, European Grandmaster level Protoss. While it was all being defended at the same time, right, he was still dealing a lot of damage here with these Archons as well. Now, neither player really losing or killing a lot of workers. But usually these are the kind of games where I have to favor the Protoss. Just because Protoss has been able to build up that economy, Zerg purposefully delayed their own economy just to try and get a big amount of units out in the earlier stages of the game. Also, obviously, Stephano doesn't have that sophisticated of an army composition, whereas we do see a lot of Archons and Zealots and whatnot coming out. No Immortal play just yet, though. But here we go. War Prism moving here on the right-hand side of the map, whereas a part of this Zerg army is going to be pulled towards that location. There's a big chunk of the Protoss army here as well near the north. Fort base once again picked off, and this is giving me some deja vu moments of game number 1, right? There we go. Once again, triple-pronged harass. Protoss is moving right here at the third base location. Protoss is moving into the natural, and now we also see that War Prism in the main base. So far, though, it looks like Zerg is dealing with all of it. Fort Hatchery did end up dying, but Zest lost practically all of his units there. All of these really important army units, he wants to keep them alive. War Prism taking critical amounts of damage as well. That is the second War Prism, however. Third one, or the first one rather, is now also being target fired down, and that means that Zest ends up losing both of the Prisms, and now also the vast majority of the army. Queens saved up a lot of energy. At the same time, though, a bunch of these Immortal, or rather a bunch of the Archons, still trying to deal some damage to the third base. Whew. That actually all of a sudden, right? From being in favor of the Protoss player here, it all of a sudden switched to being in favor of the Zerg. Losing double War Prism and then losing all of those high caliber units as well. Zest is not looking like he's in the most comfortable spot that he's ever been. Still, this is 3 base versus 3 base effectively. He's still got a couple of units here on the left-hand side, although the majority of it did, I think, get mass recalled to home. Zest did use the time here as well to build up to Psionic Storm. Right, still spending his Chrono Boost, because of course he, you know, it's kind of what he does. Stephano hunting. He knows that there could very well be some more units out here. The War Prism might very well meet well, an unfortunate fate, but for the time being, these armies do not clash. Alright, so it looks like once again we are making ourselves up for a bit of a macro game. If game number 1 was anything to judge, I don't think Stephano is going to get all too aggressive here either. He might send some Zerglings across, which is nice, but... well, that's a massive hole, though, in the wall there, right? Probe does get picked off. One Archon trying to see if it can move forward here as well. 5th base now coming up for Stephano as well. He's going to try and creep up this entire part of the map. It's a very important section for Zerg to get creeped up. War Prism here on the top left-hand corner. It will continue warping in some units here every once in a while. But that's mostly just to be a nuisance, right? Here's the big force. This is the actual scary army. There's a lot of Storm in those High Templar. Obviously, Storm is great against literally everything that Zerg has here. This is like a glass cannon composition versus a glass cannon composition. The Banelings can pop very easily against all of those High Templar, but at the same time, the High Templar can land their Storms on the Banelings and kill them within a couple of seconds. The Zealots on the left-hand side, though, were picked off, and I do think that Zest, indeed, is making the smart move, backing up for the time being. I don't know if he really wants to be aggressive here. Well, he could, but... this can easily go the wrong way, right? This is very, very risky. Here we go. Banelings trying to move forward. Great split there, actually, by Zest. Closing the gap there in between the Archons. Archons ended up picking every single one of them up. Still, though, there's a lot of Storm available. One group of Hydras here eating the majority of those Storms already. And I don't think Stephano wants to go off creep. A lot of Hydras now being picked off, but just a couple of Zealots. That's a gas army that's killing a non-gas army. Usually gonna go in favor here of the Hydralisk, obviously, but that's still a lot of Hydra losses as well. Zest is mostly worried about gas income at this point. He's more than comfortable throwing away a bunch of his minerals. Speaking of which, though, he does have 1,300 gas there in total, but... I mean, he can just warp in a couple of these Stormy boys, right? Make some Archons. There we go. This like, second engagement here in the top left is so tedious, though. Right? We see the armies try to clash here. But there's this, like, second engagement happening with the War Prism play. Really, really like that. Anyway, compared to game number 1, we do not see Stephano transitioning towards a Hive just yet. There's no Great Aspire, none of that. So he's going to be stuck on Hydraling Bane here for a little while longer. He does have +2 melee, which is great for these Banelings and Zerglings, but I don't know. We only just now see +1 finally finishing for Zest, though. I would actually like it if he decides to go for a second Forge right around this time as well. He's not in a great spot as far as the upgrades go. A couple of Links and Hydras, though, making their way across. And this is the thing, right? A glass cannon composition, it deals a stupid amount of damage. And while being very vulnerable at the same time, we see a big chunk of the army trying to engage off against the other force. But while that army is very, very vulnerable, it is capable of dealing a lot of damage. It will all come down to these kind of engagements. No Zealots in his force. Well, I guess there's one Templar. A lot of Archons, though. Archon's very good against this kind of stuff, but still, the Hydras here on the other side of the map are continuing the harassment for a little while longer. 5th base may very well end up dying. At the same time, we see a couple of Zealots making their way towards the 3rd. More and more are being queued up as well. Both players being so careful, though, right? Neither of them clashing here. I think that Stephano will be forced to give up this 5th, although he doesn't want to have that happen. Here we go. Protoss caught at a very weird angle. Banelings trying to connect with all of those High Templar. Finally, Stephano does get a decent connection there, but there's still a lot of Protoss left over. Zerglings try to target fire down those units as well. A lot of the Archons, though, do stay alive, and Zest is the one who smashes the opposing force. That could so easily go in favor of Zerg there, though, right? If the High Templar had those Banelings connect, it's just over so quickly. And Zest is now losing a lot of the high-profile units, though. Obviously, Zerg reinforces very quickly. I don't think you want to actually continue pushing here if you are the Protoss. That's a lot of high-tier units that he just lost. What? No, 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 no! Zest, what are you doing? What? Dude, what? What, you run out of Marines? Wait, no, you run out of Zealots? I mean, that's... If this is on purpose... Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Did he just pull the probes to the other side of the map? Because he's only got 3 bases anyway. To try and harass the 5th base location. To try and get the kill on the 5th base location. Oh my dude, no way. Oh, I've never seen that. So wait, Zest pulled the probes across the map to kill the 5th base. And then he bought himself time to kill the 3rd base with Zealots because Stephano must have been second-guessing himself for just a little bit, right? Oh my god. The probe pool in a... I mean, he's only got 30... Dude. Oh my god, that was so cool. I mean, Stephano's still in a good spot, economically speaking, right? But he did lose 2 bases. And he doesn't have a lot of mining mineral patches. I mean, economically speaking, I mean, he's got a lot of drones. He didn't lose a lot of those, but oh my god. The probe pool there to get the 5th base? And then obviously the Zealots here on the... Oh my god. Can't believe Zest pulled that off in a tournament. Right? That sounds like something your viewers would ask you to do over at the live stream. It's like, hey Zest, psst, can you try and kill a hatchery in this game with your probes? And he's like, alright, fine. You know, I'll try and do it. I'll try and do it. He actually, like the madman, just pulled it off in a pro game. Oh my god, if that isn't demoralizing, if you are Stephano at this point, I don't know what is. Now once again though, Stephano is a veteran, right? He's probably not gonna be all too triggered by that. He's now going up to lurkers. Doesn't have a massive amount of gas income though. Oh my god, that is so cool. Oh, I've never seen that. I've never seen that in a pro game. That is so sick. I'm glad we caught that. I was genuinely thinking he was making a mistake right there. But that was on purpose. He just simply pulled the excess amount of probes that he had on the base. It was the perfect amount as well to kill that hatchery. How the heck do you practice something like that? That's ridiculous. Well, this is a mistake though. Zest now donating one of those immortals. Maybe more or less like a blood sacrifice right now. But in the meantime, there is now that fleet beacon coming up. Zest is gonna try and make the attempt to switch into carriers. Stephano, though, is still sitting at a superior amount of supply. He's now going for 14 lurkers. If there's one thing you get off of this amount of hatcheries, I guess is a lot of gas. 14 lurkers. There's very little available right now for Zest to actually deal with this. I'm curious to see what he's gonna do against this kind of army. Sure, he's gonna have carriers out in about 3 minutes from now, because they take so very long to finish. Zerg trying to set up a run-by towards the newly acquired 4th base as well, but here we go. Stephano showing the Protoss here that he's perfectly capable of doing this multi-pronged harass. Right, here we go. Let's see how good Zest is at defending this kind of shenanigans. Well, here we go. The Banelings will be picked off. but the lurkers are now also getting into position, right? They will be capable of hitting across the rocks. A lot of storms are running out already, and Stephano hasn't even burrowed all of the lurkers just yet. That's a lot of stormy boys, though. But some of them are now morphing into Archons as well. Still can't believe he killed a base with freaking probes. Here we go, though. Big sandwich is now being set up here by our Protoss player. Does he have enough to go for this push, though? I do not know. Hydra staying in the center of the majority of this army. And I do think that Zest is slowly but surely plummeting here. But here we go. He's gonna go for one last-ditch effort. There are so many lurkers, though, still burrowed underground. And I do think that that is all she wrote here for our South Korean Protoss. Stephano, even though he lost the base there to a couple of zealots and then another one to a handful of probes, is the one who obtained the victory. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for helping me out directly. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day, okay? Do not forget to smile, and I'll see you in the next one.